So today we have two questions. One is from Ross. So Tobi, thank you for this. He's referring to the last teaching, I think. You described me exactly when you spoke about some people going to a meditation retreat to overcome their self-dislike. That's me. I just realized from listening to this. I also felt it, but couldn't identify it. In my 3 weeks in Thailand, after attending a wonderful retreat, that the thing I was trying to get away from, to find peace by, quote-unquote, sitting under a tree, a long way from life, was not other people in my life at home. It was, in fact, me. It's a major realization. Now, how to resolve it? Okay. Well, it's a major realization. It's nice. It's good. Sometimes we have these kind of major realizations. We listen to something, or we read a book, or we sit down and meditate quietly, and then suddenly there's this insight, this very clear comprehension of how things work, or how I work. Or it's almost like, that having been blind for a long while and suddenly you start to see. Or someone turning on a light in a dark room, so now you suddenly see what the room contains, what's in the room. You can clearly, how do you say, differentiate between the things. So it's similar with meditation or listening or reading or learning and so forth, that we get to certain realizations. Like, for example, this one that Ross had, that it's been himself all the time, and it's a particularly worthwhile realization to understand one's motivation when we do meditation practice. Many people are moved and motivated actually by self-hate. We sit down and we do our practice because we really don't like ourselves. We hate ourselves. And this self-hate comes in various layers. Some of it is very superficial. We directly can comprehend and understand it, like criticizing oneself. You sit down and then there are a few thoughts arising, and there's this inner critical voice, you shouldn't be thinking so much. So that's a fairly obvious version of self-hate. Another version of self-hate that is rather obvious is, for example, criticizing other people or feeling bad about other people. Well, look at these thugs over there. Why do they do that? Why would he look at me like this? That person really isn't that good. Or he was just pretending. Or, whatever it is. He's a liar. He's a thief. So we like to look at other people in a bad way. Also, it's a bit more hidden aspect of self-hate. Actually, we are seeing a world around us in which other people appear a certain way. So, for example, if you're happy, if you're in love, and people around you usually appear nice. You see good aspects even of people that you usually would criticize. But as soon as we're angry, as soon as we're annoyed, then also people around us seem to be kind of different. Seem to be annoying people, seem to be people having a lot of problems, because we are angry, our mind is burning. So of course the world around us appears as a hot place. If you're wearing tinted glasses, if you are wearing glasses with red color or yellow color, then the world will appear to you in a red way or in a yellow way, depending upon your glasses. It's just most people don't realize that it's not the world that's yellow or red, it's the glasses that we wear, it's the filter with which we are looking at this world. And here in our case, this filter is called perception. And perception is something that is entirely conditioned, the way we perceive ourselves or we perceive other people. It is something conditioned. It is not conditioned by me. I'm not sitting down every day conditioning my perception in a certain way. That would then also explain, for example, why do we dislike some things, why do we like other things. It comes from having trained our perception a certain way. Our perception is influenced by many facets, many factors. Influenced by billboards, signs, by advertising you see on TV. It's influenced by the little advertising that you see at the side on your Facebook account. It's influenced by the images that are displayed as a still image on a video. It makes you want to click, or it makes you want to get away from it. It makes you either scared or it makes you happy. Maybe you see yourself a certain way, you feel your body and you feel a little bit of an itch, or you feel a little bit of a pain inside, and your perception then goes into full panic mode and says, oh my God, I'm terribly sick, I'm going to die, or something like that. We all know these kind of things. And most of these perceptions, they just simply arise and they fulfill their function as long as they are there. And we are unaware of that. The perceptions just do their work. So we wouldn't see another person while at the same time seeing our perception of it. So seeing the liar over there, but we are not seeing that it's the perception that creates the liar in our mind. In fact, that person has no qualities whatsoever. It's our mind that gives that person certain qualities. Plus, it is our mind that gives ourselves certain qualities. It's this perception aspect of the mind which continuously adds labels and qualities to things. Yet instead of being aware of this labeling and of this qualifying process of the mind, we are only aware of its results. So for example, we are aware of a red world or a yellow world. We're not aware of the glasses. So similarly, here is another perception. How to resolve it is another perception, right? That now I understood that I cannot get away from myself by sitting under a tree in Thailand, a long way away from my life. To realize that it's actually all an effort to run away from myself. It's another perception. So it's just something else to be realized. It's just the next step. It's not, oh, I realized it, now what? Keep realizing it, and keep realizing it in the right terms, in those terms that lead to release, that make you feel free from these things that are going on, from these perceptions. Let's say, for example, you sit down and then your mind creates the story of, oh, I just had a realization, I actually hate myself, now how do I deal with this realization? It's simpler than we think. You don't have to deal with it. Leave it alone. Keep recognizing, there is another perception. Perceptions are like this. Very simple. Stay put in awareness. And there are, of course, many guests coming in all the time. Many guests are coming into the room of awareness. Sometimes there is anger, sometimes there is frustration, sometimes there is worries. Whatever it is, your job is not to do anything to your guests. Leave them alone. Just let them come into the room. And there's something that you will discover after a while of doing this, of leaving the guests alone, letting them come into the room. You will also notice that they also leave. There's not one single guest that actually stays. Nothing stays. Unless you start having conversation with that guest. Okay? Now let's say some worries are coming in. The worry is coming into the room of awareness. You're sitting here, you notice, there's worries. Now getting caught up with worries means becoming the one who worries, rather than seeing that there is worries. And that is a very fine line, very thin line. We very easily get caught up. And so we need to pay great attention not to get caught up in the worries. So there are worries. Now our job is to do nothing to those worries. Just leave them be there. Look at them. Worries are like this. If you want, even in the beginning of your practice, to make it more clear, you can tell yourself, worries, there are worries. Worries are like this. And then watch what happens to the worries. Do you remember the last time that you worried about something? When was that? Like really worried? Anything comes to mind? Last time you were worried about something. So if anything is in your mind, what happened with these worries? Where are they now? How many times did you worry in your lifetime about things? And so where are those worries now? What happened to all of them? They're gone, right? And how many times have you been angry? And what happened with the anger? Did you notice everything comes to go? If something comes into the room, it comes. Also, that implies that it goes also. If something neither comes nor goes, that's really interesting. But there is no such thing. Everything that comes into the room, everything that arises, that is conditioned, also dissipates. Depending upon your power of awareness, if your awareness is very spot on, very clear, very sharp, you will notice that things dissolve very fast. And if your awareness is very close to your guest, then you will notice that there is this kind of back and forth. So the guest seems to stay a little bit longer because we get attached to whatever appears in this room. Like the insight that Ross had, oh, I had a realization, I hate myself. And then we start to dwell with that particular guest, but it's just another guest. It's just another story the mind creates. So rather than believing in that story of, oh, I hate myself and how to resolve this, and then we need to find a way out, etc., we simply recognize, the mind is active again. It makes up another story. So stay put. Just be aware of it. Witness what's going on inside of you as a result of an insight. There is grasping. We're clinging to the inside. We're holding on to it, right? Now, one of the most popular statements that the Buddha has ever made is his condensation of all teachings. He was once asked by a guy, can you tell me what is the essence of all your teachings? And the Buddha has taught a lot. 84,000 teachings is a lot. It's a huge volume over 45 years of teaching. Now, he was also once asked by this guy, so what's the essence of all that? In one sentence, please, tell me your message. And so the Buddha responded, well, nothing whatsoever should be clung to. Because clinging is the cause of suffering. It's that simple. So, and that's what it means. We are not a good host in that moment when we get attached to one of the guests. We ignore the other ones who are coming into the room. So we are not ready, we are not available, not a good host anymore. Instead, we get caught up with anger, we get caught up with jealousy, with fears, with worries, whatnot. Bliss, happiness, rapture, joy. We get caught up. We get stuck in these things. That is not the path to the deathless. This is not the path to the end of suffering. Total peace and relaxation is not to be found like this. It is indeed only found if we learn the art of release. So once you notice that you are attached to one of those visitors that are invading your mind, that visitors invade your mind is unavoidable in this world. So it's fine, it's okay, they can invade the mind, but just don't attach to them. Leave them alone. It's just another thing. There's some Indian saying this, some woman, I don't know exactly who, but I heard that she always says, and another one. Each time something comes into her mind, she just goes, oh, another one. You can complete the sentence, or another one to let go of. Another thing to leave alone. The reason Why this world is such a messy place is because we're not leaving the stuff alone in our minds. We're taking it very seriously, and from taking it so seriously, we then start to express it, we act it out. And of course, the result is a mess. So messy, in fact, that we need to have a police force, that we need to lock our doors, etc. Been through this many times. It's a messy, messy place because we are identifying with mess. And while we're identified with mess, we produce further mess. So the way out of this entanglement of this mess is by staying in a recognizing, witnessing position. You're feeding, maybe put it another way, we are trusting awareness. You're putting all your faith into awareness. You're you're surrendering to awareness. Now when Buddhists chant, for example, I do this chant before the teaching starts. You heard in the beginning, we say that I take refuge in the Buddha, I take refuge in the Dhamma, I take refuge in the Sangha. These are the so-called 3 jewels. 3 ratana, 3 jewels. The first of those 3 jewels is the Buddha. So what does it mean to take refuge in the Buddha? Am I taking refuge in a dead man that lived 2,500 years ago in India somewhere? Is that my refuge? Could I seriously be taking refuge in a statue? Do I mean the Buddha by the statue up there? Is this the Buddha? Where is the Buddha? What is the Buddha? Well, it's a good start to think about the word, right? What does the word mean? The word simply means the one who is awake, or the awakened one. That is the Buddha. And the Buddha means the awakened one. It's not a name, He wasn't baptized at birth like, I'm going to call you Buddha. It's not his name. It's also not a title. It's a quality. It's a particular quality, a liberating quality of the mind. This is what the Buddha is. Now, how far is the Buddha from you? Do you know the Buddha? Have you seen him? Have you met this liberating quality, etc.? How many more hours of meditation until the Buddha appears to you? It's in fact more evident, it's more immediate. The Buddha is something that is here and now. Is that very faculty? It's very simple, which is aware. There is one aspect inside of your mind right now, in this very moment, that is simply aware. But we are so lost in the objects of awareness that we do not recognize awareness itself. Awareness is not something to be created, like breath. It's not something to be made. It's always there. It's always been there. It's here every minute. And it's this awareness that we miss out because we're looking out. We're looking into an objective world, into a world where there is good, where there is bad, where there is duality. So we are lost in the play of duality, completely lost in it. Therefore, we cannot see that which always remains. Anger, for example, doubt, it comes and it goes, doesn't it? But you are still here. You notice that awareness is still here. Anger comes, anger goes, then doubt comes, doubt goes, then self-criticizing attitude comes and goes, then sadness comes and goes, then resolve comes and goes, then happiness comes and goes. You see that? But one thing always there is, it's always here. It's that simple quality of wakefulness, of awareness. And that's what matters. And in fact, it is what matters, and which is at the core or the base work of so many religions, of so many spiritual traditions. They all point to something that simply is in the present. It's conscious. Some call it God, others call it whatever, It's not so important what you call it. It's important that it's right here. It's something that's awake. That's the Buddha, and it's something very simple. So if someone sits down and tries to be awake, it's like me trying to be Tobi. It's ridiculous. If I sat down for 2 minutes trying really hard to be Tobi, if I told you just try being yourself, this is a ridiculous statement. How can you not be yourself? Even if you pretend, even if you act, you're still acting as yourself. You're still pretending as yourself. You're still fulfilling the role play of a self. We're helplessly lost in this self. Now, I'm more interested in what is it that can become aware of that. And is that thing that is aware of the self and its tendencies, is it itself unhappy or happy or jealous or angry or whatever? So we stay put in this awareness, in this open space-like knowing. It's like space. It doesn't have any center. It's not a thing that is somewhere. So nothing can collide with it. Nothing can collide with awareness. Your body appears in it. Your mind appears in it. The objects of your mind and your senses appear in it. If it wasn't for awareness, nothing could appear, because there's nothing it could appear to. So it's a very important facet of our existence, is this awareness. Yet it's also the most overlooked, the most neglected one. For the sake of spiritual practice and willpower and determination and whatnot, we are going onto this path of self-sacrifice and practice, and we try to become meditators. We don't even notice it's just another thing that the mind creates. So now I'm identified with the meditator who needs to attain. So I have to sit every day for 2 hours or 3 hours. And if I'm not sitting for 2 hours, then I'm punishing myself, I'm criticizing myself. I must be doing something wrong. I'm not tough enough, I'm not tough enough for this. It's very funny. Once you notice that it's just simply the mind creating stuff. And that stuff has nothing to do with truth at all. Completely devoid of truth. However, the appearance of it is truth. It is like this. So seeing this truth is the second type of refuge. We take refuge in the Dhamma, seeing things as they are and training the mind to see things as they are. Allowing the mind to become unclouded, so to say. Giving it enough space and time, feeding into the process of becoming awake. So the mind basically liberates itself. All we need to do is recognize awareness. Right now there is a facet of awareness, right now for all of us. It's about recognizing this, not getting lost in its objects. So then, second question is from Jay. I arrived back to the UK 3 weeks ago now, and I'm really struggling with my anxieties. I can't seem to settle my anger and find myself feeling very restless. I'm still meditating, but my anxieties get the best of me. Now, after what you just heard, what would be the course of action? It's the same thing. We are anxious because we're not leaving our anxieties alone. So sit down and leave yourself be the way you are. Don't try to change anything. I call that putting down the screwdriver and the wrench. Put it down. It has nothing to do in meditation practice. Leave yourself alone. All these troubles, like I can't seem to settle my anger. Here, that really means I desperately try to settle my anger. Don't try to settle it. If a guest comes into your room, you're not trying to settle it. You leave it alone. Just leave it. And there is a bit of fear, of course, at first. It's like, oh my God, if I just leave my anger alone, it will explode. There will be this nuclear internal explosion. It will consume me and whatnot. Notice, nothing will happen. Anger comes in and you wait a little bit. Okay, so I'm staying here patiently with this anger. Let's see what happens. There is a Thai monk who told a guy, please stop smoking. And he gave him one cigarette. He is actually the Sangharaja, the upcoming Sangharaja. So he's he's like the Pope of monks, okay, in Thailand. And he gave this guy a cigarette. He wanted to stop smoking. He said, this is the cigarette of the Sangharaja. This is the Pope's cigarette. Okay? And I want you to carry that cigarette around everywhere you go to test who is stronger, the cigarette or you. Because every time you see this cigarette, you ask yourself the question, who is stronger, the cigarette or you? And by the way, it's the Sangharaja cigarette. You cannot smoke it anyways. That would be like a big thing, right? We don't smoke a monk cigarette. No? And the Sangharaja is teaching this because he also quit smoking before a long time ago. And so he just takes a cigarette, take this cigarette and see who is stronger. The same, sit with your anger. Don't even get the idea that you need to get rid of your anger. Leave it. Your anger actually comes to show you something. It shows you something about you. It wants to tell you something. It's almost like your child. It comes to tell you something really important. All you need to do is just be there. Leave it alone. And wait. Let's wait. Who can wait longer? You see just how fast anger dissolves and gives rise to another state, maybe a more underlying emotion like frustration, sadness, very often also fear. So we go to the bottom of it. We allow the process of anger to melt and reveal more and more of its core until you see that at the end of this whole process, when everything has evaporated, there's nothing there anymore. There's nothing there anymore. You just wait. Sit down and tell yourself, all right now, so be angry then. Go ahead, mind. Be as angry as you want to. I'm right here with you. You can be so angry. You can be so anxious. Whatever. Just be anxious now. You sit down 30 minutes. You don't even try to get rid of anxiety. You sit down, you do your meditation around anxiety. Tell your mind, all right, then be anxious then. I'm just going to watch what happens now. And wait. And know that every second that you are staying mindfully aware of anxiety's process, it has time to evaporate. It leaves the system. Because your awareness is cooking it. You've been spending 3 weeks in Thailand. You've been here on a retreat. Now, surely in a retreat, things get stirred up. Think about it like this. Every emotion that you carry around you is like an ice block. It's inside of you. It's like a frozen ice block. Now, when you start to do meditation at first, particularly at retreats, you start to melt some ice. And what is melting the ice? Awareness. You just look at yourself. You're in your room alone. You have nothing else to do. You can run nowhere. So you look at yourself. What will happen? All the discomforts start to come up. You'll notice all the problems that we usually run away from come up. So when you see that, it means that the ice, the emotional ice, the mental and physical ice slowly melts. That's good news. Now keep looking. What will happen? The water will become warm after a while. it becomes quite unpleasant for all of us. And stay put. What happens next? Wait a little bit. It gets more unpleasant. And then it starts cooking. And then the water turns into steam. Right? And that steam is what you feel. That's this anxiety and whatnot. It needs to get out of the system. Let it steam out. This is the process. You sit and let awareness do the job. Hand over your keys to awareness. You can do that in a very symbolic way, actually. Imagine that you're handing the keys to your heart. You say, all right, now you do the job. I'll be just waiting here. Anxiety, fear, panic, death, whatnot, let it all come. You stay put like this. And after a while you will notice these feelings get less and less. They lose the power over you because you're feeding into awareness. You're not feeding into being lost in these emotions and sensations. I do say to myself, so Jay goes on, I do say to myself, I'm here and it's like this. But then I find myself in knots about life. Yes, saying to yourself, I'm here and it's like this, not enough. You need to recognize it. Recognize you're here. Recognize that it's like this. Anxiety is like this. Yes, and there is a mess inside all of us, just most people too lazy to look at it. We all carry it around. Otherwise, how do you explain that we wage wars, that we are fearing terrorists? Where does all that stuff come from? It comes from our messy minds and from buying into them. So if we don't buy into them anymore, but we stay awake and aware, sure, then you really realize it's like this. Stay put. Anxiety, it's like this. Stay put. You have to sit down every day. You cannot do that when you are like running to work or something. There's some anxiety. Again, you're too busy for it. That's why we need to sit down every day and do meditation practice, like formal sessions. You kind of have to go into it deeply and make it a point every day, and then just work with one single emotion, like maybe just anxiety, and take it easy step by step. I feel extremely trapped and not in control, which scares me. So again, notice fear. Don't go into the story of fear. Simply notice a fear is like this and stay put. Leave the fear alone. It's part of who we are. Just don't buy into it. Sometimes also when I do my meditation practice, I've had numerous times when I had intense fear coming up. That particularly happens in retreats. This intense fear coming up. So what to do? I keep recognizing it. But it has a very strong pull. When the fear is very strong, it has this, it's like a vortex, like a black hole. It sucks you right in if you come too close. You need to keep your distance from it. That doesn't mean getting rid of the fear. It means removing yourself from it. Recognizing that you are not the fear, but you are the one that's aware of it. Recognize this difference between fear and you. There is fear. Fear is your object. Fear is your guest. Fear doesn't last. Fear is like this. Keep recognizing it. And allow fear to enter the room. Don't encourage it though. You don't want to chase it. You don't want to create it. Simply give it a permission. Say, all right, fear, I know that you have a very important message for me. You go and deliver that message. I'm just staying put here in this room. I'm just watching you delivering your message. Narrow it down a little bit also. What is this intense fear? There are several things happening. There's a thinking process to it. There's a feeling process to it, isn't there? Fear, where can you feel your fear? And how's the feeling like? Explore it. Is it more like a constricting feeling? Is it Do you feel it in your elbows? Do you feel it in your shoulders? Do you feel it in your tongue? Do you feel it in your eyes, in your head? Where exactly do you feel it? And what does the feeling itself do? Is it like a wind? Is it more like a hammer hammering down on you? Is it expanding or is it contracting? Is it burning and hot? Watch just the physical sensation and allow it to be there. No further stories made about fear. Just watch the physical sensations. Keep watching. I feel extremely trapped and not in control, which scares me. Yes, not being in control is something that scares all of us. Control essentially is a very, very, very limited idea of fear. It's coming from fear itself. We want to be in control. Here is me, an independent self, which is in control of this world and my life. And then each time this self is proven wrong, and there is fear, of course, and that's okay. That's okay. We allow it. We're bold enough to allow all of life. Awareness is bold enough to allow every facet of experience to arise and pass in its space. I feel so lost and confused. Rather than saying, I feel so lost and confused, maybe rephrase it. Say, there is a feeling of being lost and confused. It's my object. I'm seeing the feeling. I'm witnessing it. I'm aware of a feeling of being lost and confused. Let's see how long it stays today. Let's allow it to evaporate. It's a process. You give it a kind space so it can evaporate. My hair is starting to fall out and I can't sleep at night. So also, if your hair is starting to fall out and you cannot sleep at night, then I also suggest you to get some good company. You need to have some inspiring people around you that help you. Find out if there is some group of meditators around, some people who take this seriously, and some people who are actually able to encourage you and to give you some good feedback. That's also very important. To have some people around you who continuously motivate you and give you feedback. If we would be alone on this path, we're quite lost. So here is the third refuge, Sangha. The community. I take refuge in the Sangha, in the spiritual community, in people who help, people who are supporting you, people who are uplifting, who give you power and strength. You need these kind of people around you. If you want to become a golf pro, it's good to hang around golf pros. If you want to become a CEO of a large company, then surround yourself with CEOs of large companies. It helps heaps. You want to be a good meditator? You want to get rid of these problems? Surround yourself with people who got rid of them. And surround yourself with people and seek advice from people who do meditate and practice. This is very important too. Also might be a good idea to visit a doctor, maybe a Chinese medicine. You, for example, mentioned that my hair is starting to fall out. As far as I know, the hair is related to the kidneys, and kidneys, emotion is fear. So the emotion related to the kidneys is fear. So it sounds like it matches, huh? I can't sleep at night. Also, I'm having needless arguments with the people I care about the most. Well, you're on edge. You're pushing yourself up like this, more and more and more, by buying into this and having no support around you. It's very important to have this support, to be in a good environment, take a time off. If you live a life that has no boundaries and is not a life which is organized around spiritual practice, we're all having a difficult time, because one's emotions and so forth come and show themselves. What are you going to do if you're totally deserted and alone? You don't know how to treat it, you don't know what to do, you have no positive feedback. It's tough in the world, so it's important to have all that. And create it, read books, visit groups, get help from qualified spiritual guides who are standing at your side and help you with their compassion, with their presence. It needs to be real people. And if none of that works, maybe a lifestyle change is a very good idea. Move somewhere where you feel good. Do a job that you love. Enjoy yourself. Play, watch movies that you like. Don't take things so seriously, rather start to enjoy your life a little bit more. So many people also, they don't allow themselves to have some joy, to enjoy themselves. So it becomes a very tight situation in which we are. I find it really hard to express my emotions, and I can't explain my anxieties or feelings well. All I know is I don't feel happy, and I don't know why or what to do to feel happy again. Answer is very simple. Leave yourself alone. You are fine the way you are. We have these very strong beliefs inside. All of us have that we are not okay. You notice that? We sit down and we meditate, and then we look at our experiencing and we feel, no, that's not okay. I must be doing it wrong. I'm not enlightened enough yet. I'm not peaceful enough yet. I have these fears, these anxieties. It's all wrong. I'm kind of a mistake. And my experiences are kind of mistakes. So I need to find the experience which is right. Happiness, joy, peace, and so forth. But spiritual path is not like that. Happiness and peace arise at the moment when you leave yourself alone with all experiences that you have. And calmly sit with those experiences. Give yourself the space to do so. I'm constantly comparing myself with others. Here I'm constantly comparing myself with others and how happy their lives are and how great they are doing, which is making me a very bitter and angry person. Well, this is a simple habit, comparing myself with others and how happy their lives are. Now, I recommend comparing yourself with people who have it worse than you in that case, to counteract this habit. There's so many people in this world who have such a bad life. And sometimes it really helps, if you're so fixated on people who have it better than you, to turn around the habit for a little while. Each time you compare yourself with another person that has it better than you, remember some image or another person somewhere in the world who has it worse than you. I bet you can find them. You just Google, just Google people in war zones, images of people in war zones, images of people who are tortured, images of people who are, Google it. You will find a whole lot of very shocking things. And then look back at yourself again. Seeing someone who has absolutely no food at all, or eats from the street, and think back again, so what about me? Well, I have 3 meals a day, warm meals. I never need to worry about food. Relearn how to be grateful and appreciative of what you have, because there's a whole lot of stuff that you have. And I bet the fact that you can write me an email means you have some sort of access to internet or a computer. That in itself is a great blessing. It means that you are quite well off compared to most people in this world. Also having a roof over your head, being able to drink clean water every day, etc., etc. Not having to walk 10 or 20 miles to get some dirty water from some fountain in the desert somehow, being plagued by flies and mosquitoes, living on trash, heaps and heaps and heaps of trash. There's some people who live in trash areas where people dump their trash. They live in trash dumps. They live there. Some other people live in graveyards around corpses and bones and whatnot, because just simply rent's too high. I think it's in Chile somewhere where people live on a graveyard in horrible conditions, absolutely horrible conditions. Now relearn again by doing it every day. Remind yourself to be thankful every morning. Put a paper on your mirror or whatever it takes. Remind yourself to go through things that you're grateful for, and do that actively again and again and again and again every day. Each time there's a negative habit, counteract it with a positive one. Again and again. Reinstall a more useful habit. I was hoping you could give me a bit of direction. Well, okay. So that's my idea. So what's important is having good structure in life. Living a life where you have support around you, people who practice, people who are positive, uplifting, gentle in nature and kind, who do meditation, do practice meditation by themselves, for themselves, with good success. Relate to such people, stay with such people, get close to such people. If you're not, move where such people are. If you're unhappy in your job, quit your job. Do something that is more useful, more beneficial for yourself. Just don't spend your whole life doing what you hate, but rather find out what is it that I really want to do, and then dedicate energy and time into that as a gradual process. Take small steps at a time. Improve your life day by day. And don't expect to quickly attain enlightenment. I'm still feeling anxiety today, something is wrong with me. It's normal to feel anxious. I myself, I feel anxious a lot. Many times there's anxiety. It's just after many, many years of doing this, you kind of learn that it's just anxiety, and then you leave it alone and it goes away rather fast. So it's not really a problem anymore. It's only a problem as long as we are unconscious. So that's all that comes to mind so far. Is there any other question? Yes.
The practice of letting things go with anger and fear, we try to take it in everyday life as well, but really realizing that letting them go.
Yes.
If we have love and happiness and those things that affecting us in everyday life, should we let them go as well? Is awareness stronger than love and happiness in this sense?
Yes it is. So you also love and happiness and joy and bliss and whatever experiences, whether they are positive or negative, all of these experiences are rather fleeting in nature, and if we start looking at them with care, precisely, clearly looking at them, you start to understand that it's not really that there is happiness and sadness, but it's one process and it's inextricably linked. You can't pull them apart, in fact, like birth and death, right? So what about birth? Should we also discard it? I know that death is bad, but what about birth? You see what I mean? Birth is what's leading towards death. So most pleasures and most happinesses that we know are always linked to some opposite. They're linked to the other end of the spectrum. And so it spins around and around. It's important to realize that, and this will come with looking carefully into things, looking at joy. Also when joy comes, notice, there is joy. Joy is like this. There's a feeling of being in love. Being in love is like this. And then notice what happens too. So we're not really selective. We're not saying, this is a good emotion, I'm holding on to it, and this is a bad emotion, I'm trying to get rid of it by letting go. Letting go, maybe a better word even, is leave it be. Just leave it. It's fine. Sometimes there's joy and sometimes there is pain.
It's hard to resist drifting happiness and love in this sense. It's hard to step away from it. It's so good.
Yes, that's true. It's true. It's true. So we're stepping away into what? Into an empty, black, lonely hole. You see what that implies? We're stepping away from happiness. Then we're threatened by that. We're threatened by the idea that, well, then I have to give up my happiness. No. Each time you let go of something, you become more light. No matter just how fancy and amazing the product is that you're holding, as you're putting it down, you get more light. And so we discard more and more and more things, all the way becoming more and more light, more expansive, more beautiful, more inspiring in nature to ourselves and others. And, of course, spiritual path would be absolutely incomplete if that process of letting go wouldn't lead to higher and higher stages of bliss. The highest bliss is the bliss of complete release. Nirvana is the highest bliss, and that's a state of complete letting go. So it's this step-by-step discarding of what is less blissful. And more, as you discard, as you let go, there's more and more space. And with that space, there's more and more bliss. There's more and more happiness. The more detached you become, the more happiness there is. It's not that the more detached you become, the more gruesome it becomes. But what you are expressing, see, the duality between happiness and pain, is if you take one away, it seems that the only thing that's left is the other one, right? So if you take away the pain, I'm fine with that, because happiness is still there, right? But now, letting go of the happiness, then what's left, right? You know, that there seems to be this kind of emptiness of nothing, you know. And in a way, yes, it is like this, but it's a blissful emptiness. It's not nothingness. We are all totally bored in it, and nothing is happening ever, and is, you know, there is total release from all suffering and all stress. But you would notice only some things are stressful when you have something better. You could finally let go of them. Think about it like this, okay? I give you a little simile to illustrate that idea. Think of yourself having grown up in a slum. Your whole entire life, you're in this vast, huge slum. And it's a fairly disgusting place, but you were born there, and so you don't really know anything else. Huh? And so you like to play with your friends, you like to run through the streets and hop over the sewers and enjoy yourself and have fun, you know. Until one day, some guy comes walking along and he takes you by the hand and he says, come on, I show you a secret, I show you something special today. And so you follow that guy. And that guy leads you up, outside of the slum, to a slope that moves upwards on a mountain. And as he walks, it's the first time in your life that you ever saw a forest. So you're walking through this forest, and you say, what is these strange things? They're beautiful. Like you have these trees around you, and the air gets progressively fresher as you come more and more up. You see? So as you go higher, after some time, walking maybe 3-4 hours, the guy says, now turn around, have a look. Where are you coming from? And then you have, for the first time in your life, an overview, and you see the slum. You see the layers of brown smog floating, hovering above the slum. You see how the people in it are toiling. You see just how dirty everything is, because now you have a reference point. You have a comparison to it. Now the question is, having something that is more beautiful, how do you feel about going back into the slum? Knowing that there is something more beautiful than this state down there. There's another option. It feels ridiculous going back and living again in the slum, right? Otherwise, we just start to trust the guy that leads us out of the slum. He says, come on, I show you even more beautiful places. So he keeps walking with you, walks up on the mountain. The higher you get, the more clean and clear and fresh the air is, the more beautiful the surroundings, and it becomes totally quiet and serene. And finally he leads you down the mountain again, but on the other side, into this beautiful city filled with people who are happy, who lead good lives, etc., etc. So it's more like that. You realize, first of all, wow, I've been spending my entire life in this self-made slum in my mind. And now for the first time I realize what's beyond it. And it's so much more beautiful. I know it was nice, I had nice times in the slum, but it just doesn't compare to the nice times that I had on top of the mountain, walking back into the other city. Does that make sense? So it's not being in the slum and saying, oh, now I have to give up playing with my friends when I have to start meditation. No, it happens automatically. It happens automatically when you move up on the mountain and you look back. It comes from a reference point. It's like this. Too many people, they abandon happiness for the sake of letting go, because they want to be really spiritual. So they are like, okay, spiritual people have to let go. So now I have to let go of all my happiness and all my suffering too. And I'm really determined. And so they kind of force themselves into this suffering, misery every day, where they are cutting themselves off from their friends. They stop doing what they love to do because now they're meditators. And so that will fail for sure. It will only work if you have a good alternative. You don't let anything go if you don't have something better. Does that make sense? Very good. Answer the question? Cool. Okay? Right, for today it was quite a long time already, huh? So 1 hour already. Okay. Thank you very much for coming. Have a good day.